Hello everybody, I hope you're all having a wonderful day. I'm Tim Eister, and I am really excited to welcome you to the very first episode of a brand new City Skylines 2 series where we're starting something entirely fresh. Today, we're going to be starting from scratch in a brand new city called Oxburgh. Now this brand new city is more or less going to be the replacement for the beloved Bixton series that I know you guys cherish so much, but due to various factors such as performance-related things and just, having completed the game pretty much, I just felt like it's time to move on to a brand new project, and I couldn't be more excited to get started on this really great map. Let's talk about that. The map we're going to be playing on in this series is called Draconia, made by the talented Brazilian creator Capellix, who also happens to have a YouTube channel which I highly recommend you go check out. This amazing map has a lot of very well crafted features such as wetlands, rolling hills, beaches, etc. This map has it all. It's also super resource rich. My favorite part though about this map is the fact that it has a lot of obstacles, and like I was saying in a recent video outlining all of the performance issues around City Skylines 2 at the moment, one of the best ways to kind of work around those issues is to build small. And this map is going to somewhat force us to do exactly that. We're going to be forced to build a little bit smaller than I conventionally would have. No more sprawling suburbs all across the map with no obstacles. We're going to have to be a little bit more strategic in how we lay down our infrastructure to make sure that everything fits together. Now, essentially, this map consists of a large island in the middle of everything, but this large island isn't without obstacles. We have some rolling hills, some decent sized mountains, we've got some rivers and lakes in the way. So it's going to force us to maybe put a little bit more thought into what we build. But I'm really excited about this, and the best part about this map as well is, although we do have a lot of obstacles and things in the way, this map still has various flat lands dotted throughout each corner of the map that could potentially support up to a medium-sized city. So along with our main city that's going to kind of be in the middle of it all, and I think it would be really fun to build multiple cities in each corner of the map, because this map definitely feels a lot larger than it actually is. So anyways, enough of that, guys. Let's jump into some time lapse here, because I have a few things to get ready before we actually start building. I have a little bit of terraforming to do, just, to remove a few features that I'm not really a fan of on the map, just to kind of tailor everything to my taste. And then we're going to get started on something very interesting in this first episode of Oxburgh. So the very first thing I'm going to work on right here is a bit of terraforming. Now there's this kind of large wetland slash lake in the middle of the island, which I'm not really a fan of. It looks cool, don't get me wrong, but I think it's just going to be a little too cumbersome with what I have planned for this particular area. So I'm going to remove most of this lake, not all of it. I'm going to keep little bits and pieces because I kind of like parts of it, but I'm just going to kind of reduce its size in this area. Another thing I am going to do is terraform this squiggly river going throughout our starting spawn. So this little island that you're seeing here, this is our starting spawn, and this is going to be the central business district of this city. This is going to be right downtown. And a lot of times in a downtown area, you won't typically find a very squiggly river like this. In a lot of cases, such a river would be terraformed into a canal. And that is exactly what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to terraform this river, straighten it out, and make it into a perfectly terraformed canal like you may find in like downtown Chicago or even like Ottawa, Ontario. Something like that, just to give you guys a quick glimpse of what to expect. So to do this, it's going to be quite simple. I'm literally just going to kind of straighten out all of these bends here as best as I can get it. I want to make it still look natural, but I want to make it look like it was obviously terraformed and kind of reclaimed a little bit of the marshy land that would have been near this river. In addition to modifying some of the bodies of water throughout this map, I'm also going to modify the actual terrain in some places, starting by adding some hills. And by hills, I really mean a really smooth slope kind of up and down. And the reason I like to do this in a lot of my cities is because it just kind of creates that extra definition in your downtown. You know, you kind of get that San Francisco look where if you're down on the boardwalk or on the water, you can kind of see the hills in downtown, right? You can see the streets and all of the hustle and bustle more than you would in a completely flat, marshy city. So I'm just gonna kind of raise the terrain in various areas. It also creates a bit of an element of challenge too, in addition to all of the bigger mountains we have on this map that I'm gonna have to work around. You know, creating these smooth slopes all throughout this build is going to make it quite challenging, especially when building, you know, maybe a university campus or something that's a bit larger. I'm really going to have to play around with the terrain. But the main purpose of raising the terrain on this starting island, most of all, is going to be for something really cool. And the thumbnail of this video is probably going to give that away. All right, so if we get into the lore of Oxburgh, I haven't quite figured everything out yet, and I'm gonna count on you guys in part to come up with some lore. So I wanted to do something interesting for this city, and rather than building, you know, the usual North American style city that I typically do, I kind of wanted to dip my toes into building something different, something a bit more European. And a good example of a European city that is quite close to me. You're probably asking yourself, well, what could that be, Tim? We know you're Canadian. Like, what? That city is Quebec City. So it's about an 8-hour drive from me. So it's not exactly close, but I mean, you can drive there in a day. And it's a city that I've visited many, many times. And it is such an underrated, awesome city because it is the only fortified, walled city in existence in North America right now. So it's an old city. It predates even New York, Boston, you know, all those historic American cities. It predates all of those. The city was, you know, founded early in the 1600s, and a lot of the historic original city remains today, including all of the walls that surrounded that city from way back in the day. So I just think this is such an amazing city, and I've always wanted to kind of build something like this in City Skylines. And I figured, you know what, this is the perfect opportunity. You know, we have this beautiful island here right next to a nice bay. You know, the city is kind of sheltered, and from a historical standpoint, it would make sense for such a city to be founded in this location. And similar to how Quebec City is built in real life, I want to build a small European settlement surrounded by a sprawling American-style city, complete with the huge downtown with all the skyscrapers and as many sprawling suburbs as I can possibly fit between all of these mountains. As I lay down some infrastructure here just to get myself ready, we're going to do that first, and then we're going to start to build the actual historic city right in downtown. Now, one thing that that I'm gonna kind of need help with, this is where you guys come in. I've decided to name the city Oxburgh just because I kind of like the name, but I've chosen to build a French city. And, you know, Oxburgh is not very French. You know, it could maybe pass as like a German type city or an English city, but I decided to go for some French props. I didn't really put two and two together when I started this. I was just kind of, you know, flowing through the building of everything. So, yeah, I'm going to ask for you guys to come up with some city lore, because I know you guys like to kind of write up these little stories of, you know, various things that I build, and I just, you know, like to interact with you guys, and I like for you guys to have a say because, you know, it helps with the engagement and all of those things, right? So anyways, for the next couple of minutes in time-lapse mode, we're going to be laying down all of the essential infrastructure for the city, such as roads. I started off with this really big train station that was really expensive, but is going to be integral to the operation of downtown. So we're getting started with that. And in just a few minutes, we're going to get started building the actual European historic town. Now, historically, most cities are founded where they are for strategic reasons, right? Whether it be for natural resources or whether it be for transportation or maybe for military. You know, cities are always built where they are for a reason. And that is no exception for here in Oxburgh. So what I'm going to do here is elevate this huge piece of land here. So I reclaimed a big chunk of land and I'm building a hill essentially on it. And this is where the historic town is going to be. And because this is a fortified town, it would make sense for it to be up on a hill, right? So perhaps this was built in a time where there was some conflict going on in the region and there was a need for having a walled city up on a hill, right? Because it makes sense. Usually when you're gonna build a walled city, building it on an elevated chunk of land is usually the best place to do that. So I'm just gonna slightly modify the map here a little bit. Just gonna raise up some land, and then this is going to be the location for the old French town. And now we're gonna get started on the actual French town. So I've kind of flattened out this plateau up here, and we're gonna get started by laying down our streets. Now what I'm doing is I'm actively looking at Google Maps on my second monitor, and I'm kind of building something similar to Old Quebec City. And one thing that's very particular about Old Quebec City is, well, I guess not particular to that specific location, but similar to a lot of historic cities, the streets are gonna be extremely narrow. Right, so these are all going to be kind of cobblestone streets that have been paved over, and the streets are so narrow that they're all going to be one way with some parking on the side. So, you know, overall it's going to be a very densely packed part of the city, and also it's going to be a very touristic part of town, right? As is Old Quebec City in real life. So I'm going to be putting a lot of pedestrian-only one-ways throughout this this little village here as well. But for now, I'm just laying down all of the main roads, and then we're going to get into detailing all of this in just a moment here. So what I'm going to do now is build some of the roads surrounding the old town, and below the old town, kind of between it and the coast, There's going to be a second part to this build, but we won't get into that just this episode. So what you're seeing on my screen right now, this area right next to the water, this is going to kind of be an extension of Old Town. And again, I'm totally copying Quebec City. If you've ever been there, and if you've taken the ferry across the river to get to Quebec City, for example, you'll be dropped off kind of in another part of the Old Town that's outside of the walls. And for the most part, if you enter the Old Town from this direction, you're going to have a lot of the same experience than you would from any other entry point into Old Town. There's just a bunch of little restaurants and boutiques and shops and things like that. But in my experience visiting Quebec City's Old Town, in the 5 or 6 times that I've been there already, this is honestly one of my favorite spots. And I am going to recreate as close as I can this area in City Skylines 2. So it's going to be pretty exciting. But like I said, this is going to be for a future episode. Alright, so now that we've laid down most of our road infrastructure, we're ready to get started on the actual construction of the fortified city, starting with the exterior walls. And to build these walls, I'm just putting down some one-way pedestrian walkways, and I'm building them in a similar fashion to most forts that you can find around North America that were probably built in maybe the 18th or 19th century. So essentially these forts, the walls are built in such a way that if any invaders are to come attacking the fort, it means that no matter which way the invaders are coming to attack the fort, they can be fired upon by cannons and whatever that are stationed on the walls, right? There's no blind spots essentially. So I'm not really sure how much sense my walls are going to make in this build. I'm sure there's probably going to be some blind spots in some areas that you guys are going to point out, but that's okay. I'm just building a fortified wall around the whole thing, and as long as it looks cool, that's really what I'm going for. But I'm kind of trying to remain this fortified city the same shape as Quebec City in real life, and it looks kind of haphazard, right? It looks like maybe the city went through various phases of growth and new walls were erected and such, because the city in some parts is kind of set up like a typical fort where you have like these diamond shapes, and in some areas it's kind of just like a flat wall that slightly contours the topography. So I'm not really an expert on this field, on these historic forts, but like I said, we're just trying to make something that looks cool. And like I was saying in the beginning, we can come up with our own lore as to why things are the way they are. And unfortunately, as I was building my wall on multiple occasions, I had some crashes come up. Luckily, I didn't lose much progress, but it's just one of the things that you have to go through when playing with a lot of mods. But after a little bit of work, this is the final result, and I think it's pretty cool. So with that being done, we're ready to get started on building whatever goes on the interior of these walls, starting with the entrance into the fortified city. And to do this, I'm going to be using some of these bridge props. So these are kind of these classical suspension bridge tower props that go along with one of the default bridges in the game. So they look really, really nice. They're going to match up really nicely with the rest of the city. The only thing is I wish they were recolorable, so then I can match some of the colors with most of the buildings that we're going to plop in here, but it's not a big deal. And even with the non-matching colors, I mean, this looks really, really cool to add these in the city. So I'm going to put one on each end, at each entrance into the fortified city. And yeah, it just looks really, really cool overall. All right, here we go, guys. We're in live play now, and we're going to start everything off by plopping down all of our essential services, such as power and water. But I'm going to go a bit further than that. I'm going to plop pretty much every service available. Now, normally you would kind of start your city, get things going before plopping some schools and hospitals. You know, you kind of want to get some revenue flowing. But I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to play the game a little bit more reckless this time around. And I am going to be hand plopping a bunch of stuff in this city. And I want to plop as many services as I can before we actually, you know, start building some growables and zonable buildings. And I'm going to start things off, at least, with power. Okay, so we're still going to start off with the essential services to get us started. So for now, I'm just going to be importing electricity into the city, and then we'll reassess what we want to do in a little while. So I think for power, I'm just going to plop a transformer station along this main road because it connects with everything else. And then I am simply going to connect directly to the transmission lines that are already leading to the edge of the map. So these lines were already here as part of this map, which is great. And it appears, do we have water as well? Oh, okay, no, this is just a random road that was here, but we do actually have water. Oh, that's electricity. I'm sorry, guys. I'm all over the place. And then for water, well, we have none other than the French water tower. May as well plop this. And, you know, this is probably going to be one of the taller French buildings in our little French quarter here. So I think I'm going to go ahead and plop this right within our central square. So this is going to be like a public park within this little roundabout kind of thing going on here. And again, yeah, so this will connect directly to the water system. But we also cannot forget to build a water treatment plant. Oh my god, these are expensive. A lot more expensive than dumping raw sewage into the water, which we don't really want to do. We could do a... Is there any French buildings? Yeah, no, there's just the water tower. I guess we're gonna go ahead with a water treatment plant. But where are we going to plop this building is the next question. Do I play it smart, or do I just kind of temporarily plop this somewhere? Well, I guess I could build it kind of in this area because we're not going to be building anything too extravagant over here because it's kind of in the middle of a bunch of really vital transportation infrastructure. And I think it's a pretty good spot for a water treatment plant. So let me just kind of terraform this a little bit. We're going to clean things up, give ourselves a little bit more room to play around with, and then I'm just going to build a little street like this, and then we're going to build our water treatment plant. Doesn't leave much room for expansion, unfortunately. If I wanted to plop down some processing units, I may be able to kind of build something here if I want to reclaim a bit of land, but for now I think this is okay here. Oh, actually I gotta be careful because yes, this is not directly going to connect to the map. So I'm just gonna quickly draw some water pipes under the river. Nothing too fancy. I really just want to get us started here, guys. And we'll worry about the aesthetics of everything a bit later on. So there we go. We have our essential services down. Now we're ready to get into the fun stuff, you know, education, all of that stuff. So let's start off with healthcare. And then let's go into our French section. So we have a French hospital. Oh my god, that's expensive. Or a French medical center. Yeah, that's a lot more reasonable, I think. So where do we find a spot for this building? This is quite a small building. Does it have a back? Oh, I think the back is just plain. So if that's the case, we're probably going to want to build this within a large block. Maybe like... I think if I plop it here, actually, I think that would be okay. Let's go ahead and build that. And now because this building is where it's at, I can just kind of surround this whole block with other buildings, and then the blank faces on all three other sides won't be as noticeable. So there we go. Medical is fine. We're gonna have to deal with death care, but for now, I guess, well, crematorium. It's a pretty small building. I can't see why not. Maybe, oh yeah, right here. Well, I don't know. Is that right beside a hospital? That would be kind of funny. Maybe where? I guess right here would be all right. Yeah, and I guess that's gonna set us up. Oh, nice. Okay, so we even have a logo on the front. There, let's do that. Now, garbage management, we don't have to worry about that for a little while. Education, let's take a look here. So we have elementary school, high school, and a college. We don't necessarily have to plop everything right off the bat because, you know, our bank is kind of dwindling down and we're gonna start piling on the expenses. We're already losing $156,000 a month. And I'm playing with the game pause, by the way, to get us started because I don't want to spend too much time and then next thing you know, our bank is totally empty. But yeah, let's at least do an elementary school, maybe a high school. But already, yeah, the high school is kind of large, but I think, oh yeah, look at this. I think we can just plop it right here. It fits perfectly within this block, and then we can put some nice corner buildings on either side. What kind of upgrades do we have for this building anyways? We have some courthouse sunrooms. Oh, okay, they just kind of tack on to both sides. What does this offer anyways for an extra 22,000? 2 additional sunrooms. Oh, okay, they increase student capacity by 200. And this building already has 1,000 student capacity, so I think we're okay as is for now. High school, I think the high school is quite large. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna get this to fit unless I do like right here, but I don't know. I might hold off just for now, guys, and we'll reassess. Maybe the high school can go kind of around the central city because there's a few other things I want to plop, you know, within these central squares here. College, we're not gonna get into that just right yet. That's a little bit too out of reach. Fire protection, we're definitely gonna want to look into placing a firehouse, or if not, ooh, a fire station would look kind of cool because it's kind of a small building, but oh my god, is it actually, ooh, I'm just noticing this now. 2.15 million. Oh my god, that, ugh. Yeah, that's not gonna work. That's gonna like blow away half of our capital right there. Versus the firehouse, which funny enough is like twice the size, but which is a fraction of the price. We need a firehouse because the last thing we want to deal with is a fire and not have any rescue services available. Okay, what I think I'm gonna do in this case, is there any other fire building that could work? Maybe a US Northeast firehouse. I know this is an American type building, it's not French. Or maybe a German firehouse? Yeah, I might actually go with the German firehouse just because of yeah, probably gonna want to do this. Looks like it's gonna have to be on the left side of a block. I guess I could just build it right here. Nothing wrong with that being here. Yeah, that looks quite all right. It's on a little bit of an incline though. I think I'm gonna move it. So there goes 100K. Or actually, if I demolish it, oh, I just get 30K back. No, might as well move it. And oh, okay, it's just gonna cost 22,000 to move it, so not too bad. Actually, you know what? I think here would be kind of cool, and then that's gonna leave me with you know, a kind of courtyard that I can build into because it looks like the fire engines would be stored in these bays here. And what can I build onto this building? Oh yeah, More space for fire engines for an additional 2,000. An additional 2,000 in upkeep every month, so not terrible. What I could do in this case is I could do something like this. So if I move this up a little bit to where everything is level, then I can go ahead here and then build a retaining wall. And then using the level terrain tool, I'm gonna put that right down to, I guess, 20. And then flatten this out. And then, actually that's not too shabby as is. So we have a little bit of a texture glitch going on here, but nothing too bad. Once we fill this all in with buildings, it shouldn't be too bad. So now what I'll do is fill this in with some pavement. So I'll fill all of this in with pavement. And there we go. So then that leaves a little bit extra room for the fire engines to kind of like come out of their storage, and, you know, it makes turning around and such a lot easier. So hopefully when I destroy Elizabeth Lane here, okay, yep, everything is still good. One thing I kind of forgot to mention, look how hilarious this is. So here I am building a French-inspired city, and then we got Washington Lane. And then we have Elizabeth Street over here. Like, yeah, we're gonna have to do some renaming here eventually, guys. But, you know, this is just to get us started. And, you know, let's not worry about that too much. What else can we do here? We can plop a garage extension again, granting us another 4 engines, and then this adds on to this side of the building. Or do we prefer just having, you know, some trees? I think I'm just gonna leave it as is. You know, we can plop some nice corner buildings here, and then it'll leave a little bit of shrubbery between everything. So I think that's all good. Okay, so we have medical covered, education, fire. Now let's plop ourselves a beautiful French-inspired police station. And I kind of pre-planned this already, I'll admit. But one thing that I think would be pretty cool is if this large central square here would be reserved for like more government type buildings. And I find that the French, police station here looks very official. It looks very governmental. So right here in this central square is where I'm gonna plop this down. So it looks really, really cool. It doesn't like overshadow everything neither. You know, it's a quite small building. So I'm gonna go ahead and plop it there. Now the next building, I'm really not convinced this is a good idea, but I'm gonna do it anyways. I'd love to plop a French city hall because this building looks so awesome. Again, it looks very governmental, very official because it's a city hall, of course it is. But it's awfully expensive at 800K. And, you know, it comes with quite a bit of upkeep costs in addition to that. So by plopping this building, I'm gonna bring myself down to like $3 million in the bank. And, you know, we still have quite a ways to go. But you know what, guys? Pain is beauty. But, you know, my overall goal for this build is to make it look cool. And I think the City Hall will do that really, really well. Now, at least, I'm just going to leave it as is. I'm not going to build these awesome upgrades that we have the choice of building because they're quite expensive at 160 each. Basically, these buildings just tack on to both sides of the City Hall. Eventually I'm going to plop these, but for now we're just gonna make do with the plain old small version of the City Hall. But just look how really good, just look how good these buildings go together. They match perfectly well together. Really awesome. But at least, you know, we got a few really good benefits that that we can take advantage of. And look at that, if we ever go broke and we have to take out a loan, at least we'll be paying 1% less interest on our loan. So at least we got that going for us. There. So I think that pretty much is it as far as all the essential services go. Like I mentioned, we'll just get into plopping a high school a bit later on. Same as like the post office and telecom. Or I don't know, maybe we could plop a small post office. Maybe on the outskirts of our village here. Because, you know, we don't want a 70s looking post office right in the middle of our French Quarter. So, I don't know. I think I'm just going to maybe plop this here preemptively. This is probably going to become something else at some point. But, again, this is just to get us started, and it's fairly cheap. And, okay. There we go. I think we're good to go to start building away now. There's one next little thing that I want to do, though. And, again, this is kind of pre-planned. I would like to build a small park here within our central square. Oh no, I did that wrong. I was going to build it on this end of this square. And in the back of this little park, I am going to go ahead and build a modern pocket park. And by doing so, look what it does to this park. So this is kind of a little life hack that I found. So the park only occupies this space, but it actually colors in a larger kind of cement pad into our small park. So then it kind of makes a bit more sense. You know, our walkway seems to be like accessible from this side too. And I don't know, it looks a little bit better. You know, it's kind of a little quirk that I found. But yeah, I think this park is going to look really cool here. So there we go, guys. All of our essential services are down. Now the next step is I'm going to jump back into a time-lapse mode, and then we're just going to start plopping away with our zonable buildings, but I will be hand plopping them all within this zone here. So I'm hoping my demand is going to cooperate, because much of what we're going to be building here today is medium density. So we'll just have to see how that goes. So let's jump into it. Now, since we're going all out with the French assets in this video, we have an elementary school. We don't have a high school yet, but that's coming. But included in the French pack is a really great college campus, and it's very compact. And at one point, I started thinking to myself, well, maybe I could fit this campus somewhere within this building. It is quite long of a building, but it's very narrow, and it is a wall-to-wall building, so I figured that I probably could get it to fit somewhere in this entire build, and this is where it's going to go here. So I'm kind of struggling with my roads. Forgive me if this is a little frustrating to watch here, but believe me, it was frustrating to get this to work as well. But yeah, included in this block here is going to be the first college in this city, and you can see that, you know, having one modern-ish building amongst all of these historic French assets looks really nice, actually. And I think that, you know, this college campus complements this entire build, you know, because, you know, we can assume that, you know, some of these older buildings may have fallen into disrepair over 350 years, right? It totally makes sense. So to complement all of these historic buildings, a new college campus was built in place of where there used to be old buildings, kind of in a similar theme with a modern twist. You know, we can kind of go with that story, and this is totally going to be functional as well. Now, the next step is going to be plopping a high school somewhere, so then we're going to actually have all 3 stages of education in the game, and eventually we're going to have to build a university as well, but that is going to come a little bit later in this series, because that is going to take up a lot of room. Now, after plopping away for quite some time, I'm ready to move on to the next stage of this build, and we're gonna kind of build the cherry on top for this whole build, which is this massive castle kind of hotel, just like the one in Quebec City. You know, that iconic building perched up on the hill, you know, that kind of gleams over the entire walled city. That's what this building is going to be. And to do that, I'm gonna be using the Gatehouse Residence. It is a default vanilla building. It's a signature building, and it's the closest thing I could find that resembles kind of like a castle hotel kind of building. The only thing that's kind of a shame in this case is recolor does not work with this specific building, which I really wish it did, because I would change the color of this building to better match the overall aesthetic, maybe to like a nice white color, you know, to match all of the buildings that we've plopped so far, or maybe even like a brick color, just like the real thing in Quebec City. But nonetheless, I mean, even with this bluish gray color, it doesn't look bad. You know, it still fits in quite nicely with the overall theme of this village here. So we're gonna go with it, and I still think it looks really cool. So what I've done here is I've plopped the original Gatehouse Residence building. It is a residential signature building, and it has a bunch of, you know, cool perks that go along with it, which I forget what they are. But what I've done in addition to that is I've plopped a prop version of this building, and that is done using the Static Ploppables mod, which essentially allows you to plop any building in the game as a prop. So it is 0% functional, but I just kind of combined both buildings together to make one large hotel. And the only thing with this mod is when you plop down the prop version of any building, it doesn't actually include any of the landscaping down below. So you have to manually go in and detail everything as you wish. But I mean, that's kind of a good thing, because then, you know, you have a bit more freedom to decorate things as you wish. And with that, we're gonna now move on to the detailing side of things, where I'm gonna start by laying down some nice manicured grass all over this build. And throughout this series, I will be spending a little bit more attention to detail than I normally would, but I'm still not gonna go to an extreme level, just because, you know, even though we're starting to see more and more decals and, you know, various things coming up on Paradox Mods, we unfortunately still don't have access to custom assets. And, you know, that makes for kind of like a limited amount of detailing capabilities in the game. So I'm going to keep this kind of on the same level as I would in my Florida series, if you've ever seen it. So just kind of like a little notch above just a regular Let's Play like I was doing in Bixton, but then not as much as like my old Timbukton series, for example, if you guys watched that X number of years ago. So anyways, throughout this build, I am going to be paying attention to various things, such as, you know, adding paths, adding, you know, a bunch of props that are available in the game right now, such as fountains and things like that. So, I mean, we still have quite a bit at our disposal at this current stage in the game. So we're going to be detailing quite a bit of things here for the last leg of this episode before moving on to the cinematics at the very end. And again, related to props and things like that and detailing, this city, I plan on supporting it and continuing it for the long term, right? And it is going to be a fairly large scale project because I plan on building multiple cities throughout the map. So I don't want to spend too much attention to detail in each particular area, because then it's going to take me forever to expand the city. You know, I still want this to be kind of like a Let's Play. Some episodes are probably going to be more in a Let's Play format, whereas others are going to be more in a time-lapse fashion, like today's episode, where I'm focusing more on detailing. You know, it really depends on the scope of the project, what I'm working on. But this is just really something that I've been wanting to work on for quite some time now. This idea of building a walled city has been prowling around in my mind for quite some time. So this was a pretty big project in itself that just, I had to cram so much content into one episode. That's why half of this episode is in a time-lapse fashion. But for those who may prefer more of the Let's Play style, don't worry, next episode is probably going to be much more in the Let's Play format, as we're going to get started on actually building the city and, you know, playing it as we would any Let's Play. I'm really curious to see how the city is going to function once I hit play here. So I've been on pause for most of this episode because I just know that as soon as I hit play, my demand is just gonna tank. And the only thing that's gonna remain is probably industry and low density residential. That's probably all that's gonna be left. So that means next episode we're probably going to want to start to expand in the low density variety, as well as maybe taking care of some of our citizens' happiness. You know, we're gonna have to check out what they need, and we're gonna have to actually play through this city. I still want this city to be functional. You know, I want this city to be aesthetic, but I also want it to be functional. So that's why I'm gonna actually be playing throughout this game and not just focusing on the detailing side of things. So guys, with the end of this episode approaching, let me know down in the comments what you think of this build. Are you excited that I'm starting a new series? What do you think about this city more or less replacing Bixton? I know Bixton was beloved by everybody and it was kind of like the staple series. It's the first city that I've ever built in City Skylines 2. We started that city right on launch day. And don't forget, Bixton was started at a point in time we didn't have Paradox mods. We had no mods whatsoever, no code mods. We didn't have any decals or anything that's on Paradox mods right now. We didn't have any custom maps even. That is why Bixton had to be built on just a regular default map, and that's why I chose the Tampere map, because it was kind of my favorite at the time. But there's so many great options now on Paradox mods. You know, so many custom maps are constantly being uploaded to the workshop. And, you know, we're just going to see more and more really cool maps plop up over time. And I'm excited to see, you know, what kind of mods and stuff we're going to see, you know, starting to appear on Paradox mods. And of course, eventually, once we get custom assets, that is going to be really exciting. I can't wait for that, because that is really when we're going to be able to tick up the realism notch to 11. Right? So anyways, even though, you know, we just have access to a basic set of mods and assets and things like that, you're going to see at the very end of this episode that, you know, we're going to create something that's very unique here, and it's going to be pretty cool. Now, our old town can't be considered an old town without cobblestone streets, right? In Quebec City, there are a number of streets that are cobblestone. There are also a number of them that are paved over, which I'm sure that you could probably find cobblestones underneath the new pavement. But yeah, I'm going to be doing exactly this again in our old town here. So some of the streets are just going to be modern pavement, and some of the others are going to be cobblestone. And how I'm doing this is quite easy. I'm just adding a cobblestone texture over the existing streets. And for the streets that are not layered over with cobblestone, we're going to give them the proper Canadian treatment. We're going to be adding tons of potholes and cracks and just completely demolishing these streets as they are in real life. You know, we're going full realism in this episode, guys. So using these really great road decals from Sully, we're going to add a bunch of cracks all over town. And then what I'm going to do is add a few vehicle props in some of the courtyards that I've built throughout the episode. And, you know, that's just going to add another little detail, you know. And then this next part is pretty cool. So this was kind of a last minute thing. And I was just browsing Paradox mods one day, and I discovered these beautiful murals from various creators. And if you've ever been to Quebec City, you'll know that there are a number of beautiful murals all throughout the city on various buildings. And this is something that I wanted to emulate in our city as well. So I'm going to make use of these really, really awesome decals. You're going to see me struggle here for a few seconds to choose what kind of decal I want to be on this building, but it's going to also give you a chance to see what kind of murals can be found on the workshop. So Again, this is like a really cool addition to this whole thing, and it adds like that extra layer of uniqueness to this whole build. But check that out, guys. I just really love these decals, these beautiful murals on the sides of buildings. Super cool. And the very last thing I'm going to do in this episode is plop a high school after all. You know, we have an elementary school, and then later in the episode we added a college, and I just thought it would make sense to at least include one high school to get us started. So now we have all 3 tiers of education level that is possible. Now, unfortunately, due to all of the high schools being rather large, I decided to plop this French high school just on the outside of the old town. And I mean, I guess it's kind of fitting, you know, with the whole theme of the building and all that. And this high school is one of the smaller ones out of all of the others, so I think it's pretty fitting for it to be right here in downtown. And with that, that is going to conclude this first episode of Oxburgh. So guys, I just want to thank you so much for watching. I hope you're excited about this new series. Don't forget to drop a comment down below if you have any lore ideas for this city. I'm not even opposed to a name change. If we want to change the Oxford name to something else, maybe even like a more French name so it matches the whole vibe of this French town that we've built today. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment. If you enjoyed this video, also don't forget to give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel if you enjoy my content overall. And if you would like to support the channel even further, check out my Patreon. The link is down in the description. Guys, that is it for me today. Thanks again so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.